The incident began on a Saturday, under a placid blue sky that offered no hint of the storm to come. It involved Dr. Samuel Sterling, a senior official within the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, his 7-year-old golden retriever, Apollo, and a woman whose name would later be identified as Candace Finch. The location was Northwood Park, a public space where citizens were meant to find peace. The accusation, screamed for all to hear, was that Dr. Sterling, a black man in a gray hoodie, had viciously kicked Candace's miniature terrier. The responding officer, a 6-year veteran of the force named David Miller, arrived and, based solely on the visual of a hysterical white woman and a stoic black man, made a decision. He chose his side instantly. What Officer Miller didn't know was that his every word, his every sneer, and his every biased assumption was being recorded, not just by the half-dozen smartphone cameras that had materialized among the onlookers, but by a state-of-the-art, 4K resolution city surveillance camera mounted on a pole not 30 feet away. This encounter would not end with a wrongful arrest. It would end an officer's career and trigger a federal review of the very department he served. The morning air was cool, carrying the scent of cut grass and damp earth. Dr. Samuel Sterling felt the familiar, gentle tug on the leash and smiled down at Apollo, whose feathery tail was sweeping a happy rhythm against the pavement. It was their weekend ritual, a long, meandering walk to decompress from a week spent dissecting the intricate failures of law and order, of poring over consent decrees and statistical analyses of biased policing. Here, in the park, he wasn't Senior Counsel Sterling. He was just Sam, a man with a good dog. He wore faded jeans and a comfortable, nondescript hoodie from his college days, a deliberate choice to be anonymous, to be unburdened by the weight of his title. He was on the phone with his wife, Jessica, discussing the merits of painting the guest room sage green versus a soft gray. It was a conversation of beautiful, wonderful mundanity. No, Jess, sage green makes it look like a hospital waiting room from the 90s. He chuckled, his voice low and warm. We are not doing that. Apollo, ever patient, sat at his feet, his gaze fixed on a squirrel chattering indignantly from the branch of a nearby oak. It was in this moment of domestic tranquility that the disruption occurred. From across the green, a small, beige blur of fur shot out from behind a bench. It was a terrier mix, no more than 15 pounds, its high-pitched, frantic yapping slicing through the park's calm. The dog was off-leash, a clear violation of the park's posted rules. Its owner, a woman in expensive athletic wear, was completely oblivious, her head bent over her phone, thumbs flying across the screen. The terrier, whose name he would later learn was Buttons, made a beeline for Apollo. Its posture was pure aggression, head low, teeth bared, a guttural snarl rumbling in its tiny chest. Apollo, a model of canine composure, simply stood up, his body tensing slightly, but showing no aggression in return. He looked to Samuel for guidance. Samuel ended the call with a quick, "I'll call you back," and slipped the phone into his pocket. He had owned dogs his entire life. He knew this dance. The key was to project calm authority, to de-escalate before the smaller dog's Napoleon complex got the better of it. He took one firm step forward, placing himself slightly in front of Apollo. As the terrier closed in, snapping at the air just inches from Apollo's nose, Samuel drew in a breath. He used the same command he'd learned from a dozen trainers, a technique designed to startle, not harm. It was a sharp, guttural burst of sound, projected from the diaphragm. "Hey," he boomed, his voice echoing slightly in the open space. He simultaneously took another hard stomp with his foot onto the pavement, not at the dog, but beside it, to create a secondary auditory shock. The effect was immediate. The terrier, shocked out of its aggressive frenzy, let out a startled yelp and scrambled backward, its bravado vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. It turned tail and scurried back towards its owner, its frantic yaps now tinged with confusion. Problem solved. Or so he thought. The woman, Candace, finally looked up from her screen. Her eyes widened, not with concern for her dog's behavior, but with pure, unadulterated rage directed at him. Her face, framed by perfectly highlighted blonde hair, contorted into a mask of indignation. "What did you do to my dog?" she shrieked, her voice a piercing siren. She rushed forward, scooping the trembling terrier into her arms. "What is wrong with you? You kicked him. You animal." The accusation hung in the air, ugly and baseless. Samuel stood his ground, keeping the leash short. "Ma'am, I did not touch your dog," he said, his voice level and calm, a stark contrast to her escalating hysteria. "Your dog was off-leash and charged at mine. I used a verbal command to stop it." His explanation was logical, factual, and utterly useless. She wasn't interested in the truth. She was building a narrative, casting herself as the victim and him as the villain. "Liar. I saw you. You kicked him. You monster," she screamed, cradling the perfectly unharmed dog like a wounded infant. "He's just a baby. You tried to kill him." The volume of her performance began to draw an audience. A few joggers slowed their pace. A couple on a nearby bench turned to stare. A young man pushing a stroller stopped, his brow furrowed with concern. Samuel felt a familiar, cold dread begin to coil in his stomach. He had seen this scenario play out countless times in case files and viral videos. He knew how quickly a white woman's tears could be weaponized against a black man. "Ma'am, you need to calm down," he tried again, maintaining his composure with practiced effort. "There are leash laws in this park for a reason. To prevent situations exactly like this." This only fueled her fury. She pointed a trembling, manicured finger at his face. "Don't you tell me what to do. You assaulted me. You threatened me and my dog. I'm calling the police." She fumbled for her phone, her thumb mashing the screen. "Yes, 911. I'm at Northwood Park. There's a man, a big, aggressive black man. He kicked my dog. He's screaming at me. I'm terrified. Please hurry." Every word was a carefully chosen brushstroke, painting a picture of him as a violent, unhinged threat. The racial descriptor was not accidental. It was the cornerstone of her complaint. He sighed, a quiet exhalation of profound weariness. He looked up and met the eyes of the young man with the stroller. The man gave a slight, almost imperceptible shake of his head, a silent acknowledgement of the injustice he was witnessing. Samuel then slowly scanned the area, his gaze landing on the sleek, dark dome of the security camera on the light pole. A small, blinking red light confirmed it was active. Evidence. He stayed put, holding Apollo's leash, waiting for the inevitable. The wail of a siren grew steadily louder, a sound he usually associated with the pursuit of justice, but which now signaled the potential for its complete perversion. A police cruiser, lights flashing, jumped the curb and sped across the grass, stopping mere feet from them. The driver's side door flew open and Officer David Miller emerged. He was a man who seemed to have been poured into his uniform, all broad shoulders and cocksure swagger. His hand was already resting on the butt of his holstered firearm, a gesture of preemptive authority. His eyes, shielded by reflective sunglasses, swept the scene and, in a fraction of a second, completed the prejudiced calculus Candace had started. He saw a distraught white woman clutching a small dog, and a large black man standing stoically. His mind was made up before a single word was spoken. He strode past Samuel, as if he were a piece of park furniture, and went directly to Candace. "Ma'am, are you all right? I'm Officer Miller. What happened here?" His voice was a caricature of solicitous concern. Candace, a consummate actress, unleashed a fresh torrent of tears. "Oh, thank God, officer," she sobbed, pressing her face into her dog's fur. "That man, he attacked my buttons for no reason. He kicked him, and then he started screaming at me, threatening me. I was so scared." Officer Miller nodded gravely, patting her shoulder. "It's okay, ma'am. You're safe now. We'll handle it." He turned to Samuel, and the transformation was chilling. The concerned public servant vanished, replaced by a hardened enforcer. The sunglasses came off, revealing eyes that were cold and accusatory. His entire posture shifted into one of confrontation. "You," he barked, the single word in indictment. "Put your hands on top of your head." Now, Samuel did not move immediately. He met the officer's gaze. "Officer, there seems to be a misunderstanding. I didn't ask for a conversation. I gave you an order. Hands on your head, or I'll put you on the ground. Do you understand me?" The threat was naked, the promise of violence clear. Samuel slowly raised his hands, the movement deliberate and non-threatening. He knew the choreography of compliance. Any sudden move, any perceived defiance, could be interpreted as a threat and met with force. "Officer," he said, his voice remaining steady, "that woman's dog was off-leash and aggressive. I did not touch it. I used a verbal command." Miller sneered, a contemptuous curl of his lip. Oh, a verbal command. Is that what you call it? She says you kicked her dog. She says you threatened her. Right now, her story is looking a lot more credible than yours. He stepped closer, invading Samuel's personal space, his presence a physical manifestation of intimidation. Let's see some ID. It's in my back pocket, Samuel said. May I have your permission to slowly reach for it? The question was a test, a way of establishing a record of his compliance. Miller grunted an affirmation. Samuel carefully retrieved his wallet and handed over his driver's license. Miller snatched it from his hand. He glanced at it, a flicker of something, disappointment, annoyance, crossing his face when he saw the clean record. Then he saw the name, Dr. Samuel Sterling. He read aloud, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Doctor, huh? A doctor of what? Selling drugs on a street corner? The slur was so blatant, so unprofessional, that a few of the onlookers gasped audibly. The young man with the stroller had his phone up now, recording openly. Miller either didn't notice or didn't care. Samuel felt the anger, hot and sharp, but he walled it off. Emotion was a liability. Logic and law were his shields. I'm a doctor of jurisprudence, he stated calmly. I'm an attorney. This information did nothing to deter Miller. If anything, it emboldened him. He saw it as a challenge from a C lawyer, a citizen with just enough legal knowledge to be difficult. An attorney? Good. Then you'll understand the words animal cruelty, assault, and intimidation of a witness. Those are the charges you're looking at right now. We have a victim. We have an eyewitness. Me, seeing you continue to intimidate her. And we're going to have you in the back of my car in about 30 seconds. He gestured towards Candace, who was watching the exchange with a smug, triumphant expression. My intimidation was me attempting to explain the facts. Officer, Samuel countered, his tone precise. The fact that her dog was unrestrained in violation of city ordinance 12-5. The fact that it acted aggressively. And the most important fact, officer, is that this entire park is under constant video surveillance. He tilted his head slightly towards the camera on the pole. That camera, right there, has recorded this entire interaction from the beginning. It will show you exactly what happened. Miller glanced at the camera, then back at Samuel, his expression one of utter dismissal. I don't need a camera. I have a victim. A real, crying victim. Not some thug in a hoodie trying to talk his way out of trouble. The word thug was the final piece of the puzzle, the confirmation of the racial script Miller was following. It was clear that no amount of reason would penetrate the officer's prejudice. He was operating on a set of assumptions that had been hardwired into him long before he'd ever put on the badge. He saw a black man and assumed guilt. He saw a white woman's tears and assumed truth. So, you're not even going to look at the evidence? Samuel asked, a final attempt to appeal to procedure. You're just going to take her word for it and arrest me? That's exactly what I'm going to do, Miller said, reaching for his handcuffs. Turn around. Hands behind your back. This was the precipice. The point of no return. Samuel knew that once those cuffs were on, the narrative would be set. He would be just another booking photo, another statistic. The truth might come out later, but the damage, the humiliation, the arrest record, the fight to clear his name, would be done. He had to stop it now. He lowered his hands slowly, a deliberate act of defiance that made Miller pause, his hand hovering over the cuffs. I would strongly advise against that, officer, Samuel said. His voice had changed. The calm patience was still there, but it was now underpinned by a new, unyielding authority. It was the voice he used in federal court, the voice that made seasoned defense attorneys sit up a little straighter. Miller laughed, a short, harsh bark. You're advising me? You're in no position to advise anyone of anything, pal. Who the hell do you think you are? The question hung in the air, filled with bitter irony. Samuel met his gaze, his eyes unwavering. That's a fair question, he replied, his voice dropping to a near whisper, yet carrying more weight than all of Candace's histrionics. Let me answer it for you. He reached into his wallet again, bypassing the driver's license and the credit cards. He withdrew a different card, one that was thicker, with a holographic seal and an official government crest. He held it out for the officer to see. My name is Dr. Samuel Sterling, he said, enunciating each word with crystalline clarity. I am senior counsel for the Civil Rights Division of the United States Department of Justice. The effect of these words, combined with the sight of the credentials, was like a physical blow. Officer Miller froze. His bravado, so absolute just a moment before, shattered like cheap glass. The color drained from his face, leaving a pasty, slack-jawed mask of disbelief. His eyes darted from the ID card to Samuel's face and back again, struggling to process the reality that was crashing down upon him. The man in the hoodie, the thug he was about to arrest, was a high-ranking federal official whose entire job was to police the police. What? What is this? Miller stammered, his voice suddenly a full octave higher. This is some kind of fake ID, right? It is not, Samuel said, his voice as cold and hard as granite. That is my official federal identification. Badge number 782. You are welcome to call your dispatch and have them run it through the national database. I assure you, it's quite real. And I also assure you, Officer Miller, that you have just made the most catastrophic series of errors in your professional career. Samuel methodically laid out the case against him, not as a suspect, but as a prosecutor. You arrived on scene and demonstrated immediate confirmation bias, siding with one party without gathering facts. You failed to interview me, the other party involved. You ignored my reference to exculpatory evidence, the surveillance camera. You used racially charged and derogatory language, calling me a thug and making insinuations about my profession. You threatened me with arrest without probable cause, as the only evidence you had was a hysterical and uncorroborated statement from a woman who was herself in violation of park ordinances. Every step you have taken since arriving has been a violation of proper police procedure and, more importantly, a violation of my civil rights under the 4th and 14th Amendments. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle in the now silent park. Even Candace had stopped her performative sobbing, her eyes wide with dawning horror as she realized her lie had spiraled into something far beyond her control. Samuel wasn't finished. He gestured with the hand holding his credentials towards his own phone. My phone has been making an audio recording of this entire interaction since you arrived. The young man over there, he nodded towards the father with the stroller, has been making a video recording, as have at least 3 other people I can see. All of this, in addition to the city's own high-definition camera, will serve as evidence in the official misconduct investigation I will be personally opening against you and your department on Monday morning. A new siren could be heard in the distance, growing closer. Miller had likely called for backup when he first arrived, expecting to deal with an aggressive suspect. The sound now seemed less like a promise of reinforcement and more like the tolling of a bell for his career. Miller's face was a mess of conflicting emotions: panic, fear, a desperate, scrambling attempt to find a way out of the hole he had dug for himself. Sir, listen, there's been a misunderstanding, he began, his voice pleading. The word sir felt foreign and clumsy on his tongue. I was just trying to de-escalate the situation by threatening to arrest the calmest person here. Samuel retorted, his voice cutting. By using racial slurs? Officer, the time for de-escalation passed the moment you chose your narrative. Right now, the only thing I advise you to do is to invoke your 5th Amendment right to remain silent. You are going to need a very good lawyer. The second patrol car arrived, and a sergeant, a man with gray at his temples and weary eyes, stepped out. He took in the scene. His junior officer looking like he'd seen a ghost, a crowd of people with their phones out, and a calm, impeccably dressed, in spirit, if not in attire, black man holding up what looked like federal credentials. Miller, what the hell is going on here? The sergeant demanded. Miller was incapable of forming a coherent sentence. He just pointed a trembling finger at Samuel's ID. The sergeant walked over, took the credentials, and examined them closely. He looked at the photo, then at Samuel's face. The recognition and the implications dawned on him almost as quickly as they had on Miller, but his reaction was one of professional dread, not panicked collapse. He handed the ID back to Samuel with a reverence one might afford a live grenade. Dr. Sterling, the sergeant said, his voice tight with controlled alarm. I am Sergeant Peters. It seems there has been a significant misjudgment here. That's one word for it, Sergeant, Samuel replied coolly. Your officer was about to arrest me based on a fabricated story, and he used some very interesting language. While doing so, Sergeant Peters shot a look at Miller that could have curdled milk. Miller, in the car. Now, not another word. Miller, looking utterly broken, shuffled obediently to his vehicle. Candace, seeing her protector and enabler vanquished, decided it was time for a strategic retreat. She began to sidle away, trying to melt into the crowd. It didn't work. "Hey, she's the one who started it all," a woman from the crowd shouted, pointing directly at her. She lied. Her dog was the aggressor. The young father with the stroller stepped forward. "I have the whole thing on video, right from the beginning. It shows her dog charging him. He never touched it." Sergeant Peters turned his weary eyes to Candace. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stay right there. We're going to need your statement. And I believe you'll be hearing from the city attorney regarding filing a false police report." Candace's face crumpled, the indignant rage replaced by the pathetic fear of consequence. The fallout was swift and decisive. By Monday afternoon, Officer David Miller was placed on administrative leave pending the results of an internal affairs investigation and the now official federal inquiry led by the Department of Justice. News outlets picked up the story, fueled by the multiple cell phone videos that had gone viral overnight. The footage was damning. It showed Samuel's calm professionalism in the face of Miller's escalating aggression and overt bias. But the star of the show was the crystal-clear footage from the park security camera. It captured the entire incident from a wide, objective angle. The off-leash terrier, the charge, Samuel's non-violent intervention, and Candace's immediate, fabricated theatricality. There was no ambiguity. There was only the truth. Candace Finch was charged with filing a false police report and multiple civil infractions for the leash law violations. Her digital footprint revealed a history of similar complaints and entitled behavior. The city's police chief issued a public apology to Dr. Sterling, who accepted it with a formal, carefully worded statement. He made it clear that the issue was not personal. "This incident was not about me," his statement read. "I was fortunate enough to have a title and credentials that protected me. But this is about the countless others who do not. It is about the systemic biases that allow an officer to see a black man in a hoodie and presume guilt, while seeing a white woman's tears and presuming innocence. The goal of this investigation is not punitive, it is corrective. We must have a system of justice where the truth matters more than the participant's skin color, and where every citizen is afforded the same presumption of innocence, regardless of their station in life." The story ended, but the conversation it ignited continued. For Samuel, the walk in the park had become a stark reminder of the world outside his office, a world where the principles he fought for on paper were still a brutal struggle on the pavement. As he sat in his office that week, looking at the case file now open on his own desk, bearing his own name as the complainant, he felt not vindication, but a renewed and heavy sense of purpose. The work was far from over.